Hello, hello, welcome back to Loki's Library, and if you are new here, welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and on Sundays I do a thing called Books and Booze, where I review a book and mix up a cocktail. This month we are looking to the stars, making this week's book Hidden Figures. Whoops. Move that so you can see the author's name, by Margot Lee Shetterly. The accompanying cocktail is Role Model, which is 1.5 ounces of gin, 3/4 ounces of cognac, 1/4 ounce of cherry liqueur, 1/2 ounce of lime juice, teaspoon of simple syrup. That'll be fun to have a 3 teaspoon mark on here. I forgot to bring a teaspoon up. I'll just have to eyeball it. And, 2 dashes of bitters. There we go. So let's do this. A lot of people are broadly familiar with the story behind Hidden Figures, thanks to the Hollywood movie starring Taraji P. Henson as Katherine Johnson, Octavia Spencer as Dorothy Vaughan, and Janelle Monáe as Mary Jackson. And I love the movie. The movie is wonderfully cast, it's brilliantly acted, it's beautifully performed. It's just everything about the movie just came together and was wonderful. Like, it fully deserved all the accolades and nominations it got, and I feel probably should have won a couple of those nominations. I mean, the actors are all powerful performers. You're cheering for them every step of the way, and they are brilliantly supported by, Kevin Costner, Jim Parsons, Kirsten Dunst, Glenn Powell. I mean, the movie overall deserved the accolades and should have won. It was released in 2016, and I don't know if it did win. I don't watch the movie awards because, well, I generally don't like Hollywood, but this one was a good one. So mostly people are broadly familiar with the story just from that. But, as is so frequently the case, I mean, I think I can count on one hand the number of movies that were actually better than the book. The book was infinitely better. Like, hands down. The detail, the story behind the lives these women led, infinitely better. And for a variety of reasons that might surprise you. So the story starts, of course, with Dorothy Vaughan. And she actually really does start with Dorothy Vaughan in World War II. Actually, it starts a little bit before that. I just realized I'm having to roll past the cocktail, so I don't want to be rolling up and down, so let me pull the cocktail up here so I have my measurements on hand. Eyeball that shit. So it starts a bit earlier with the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, which is what NASA was before it became NASA. So the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, or NACA, back in World War I, which evolved to deal with the lack of airplanes that America had going into that first global conflict. But the intervening decades, but especially as World War II ramped up, NACA found themselves with a severe lack of people who could crunch the numbers, and more men were shipping overseas to the fight, so that left women to fill the gap. This happened all over the place, right? Very famously, you got the Rosie the Riveter posters. Women were stepping in to fill the gaps left by the men who had to go and fight. Same thing happened academically. Same thing happened, mentally with the maths and the numbers, and so they turned to hiring women, both black and white. And Dorothy Vaughan was one of these women. She was hired to NACA on December 1st, 1943. And they were called the NACA Nuts, which is hilarious. But really, basically, she describes your absolute everyday average typical nerd. And nerds have remained the same in the intervening, 80 years of life, which is something I love for nerd culture. Yay, nerds, unite. So Dorothy was born Dorothy Jean Johnson, September 20th, 1910, in Kansas City, Missouri. When she was 7, the family moved to Morgantown, West Virginia, where she would be class valedictorian at Beechhurst High School before attending Wilberforce University in Wilberforce, Ohio, on full scholarship, and graduating with a bachelor's degree in mathematics. Lime juice. She married her husband Howard Vaughan in 1932, and they had 6 children together, staying at the Vaughan family residence with Howard's parents in Newport News, Virginia. Now, Howard Vaughan was like a traveling valet, basically, not the valet that parks cars so much as like the one like bag boy. He'd go to fancy hotels in the north during the summer, fancy hotels in like Florida in the south during the winter, to earn that tip money. And their relationship worked for them, except that it didn't really bring in a whole lot of money, because even with a degree, and even with an advanced degree in mathematics, if she'd had one, Dorothy was a black woman in the South. And so the best she could ever hope for as a job was as a math teacher. And that's what she did. In fact, I think a great many of the calculators worked as math teachers, because that was the best job they could get until the country called, and then they suddenly had a much better opportunity. So they stayed at the Vaughn family residence in Newport News, Virginia, and this was not unusual, especially in the Depression when both parents had to work as much as they could, which meant the grandparents took care of the children. So Dorothy would work as a teacher during the school year, and in the summers she would pick up whatever work she could. And she was working in, I think it was a military laundry, when she got word that NACA was looking to hire women to work as computers at Langley with a significant pay raise. I mean, it basically doubled her salary from what it was as a teacher. I'm calling that a TISP. All right, I've got everything in here except the bitters. So it doubled her salary. So she applies, quickly accepted because she certainly met all the qualifications, and they moved and made the move to Langley. Now, eventually, she would move her children there. Although at first she left them in Hampton, is that where Newport News, with her husband's parents until she could afford to buy a small house. And it's like a little 2-bedroom house, which is not very big for 6 kids. But she wanted her kids with her. Against her in-laws' objections, she brought the kids with her. She would send the kids back in the summertime, but during the school year, she wanted them with her because they're her kids. They're her responsibility. She's their mother. She wants the very best for them, which means she wants to make dang sure they're buckling down and doing their homework and doing everything they can to pass and take advantage of the opportunity she's providing them with her hard work. Let me shake this up. Now, during the school year, she would she would barter childcare services from service members who were living in the area. She would let them stay there for room and board, but they had to watch her kids for her when she was at work. Yeah. And that worked for them. All right. She eventually made supervisor of the West Computers Group, and she would serve in that capacity, I think, for 8 years before the group was dissolved and she was assigned somewhere else. Now, the reason for the dissolution was that NACA had purchased IBM computers, which were ridiculously expensive, coming in at a price tag of like $1 million. They took up entire rooms and or buildings. But Dorothy, when she was the supervisor of the West Computing Group, saw the writing on the wall and began studying Fortran, which is the programming language at the time, becoming an early adapter for the new tech. So she was moved into the actual computing group, if you will. Now, all of these women were eminently qualified, all right? They all had college degrees in math. Prior to World War II, the best job they could hope for was teacher, and like I said, a significant number of them worked as teachers before being hired on with NACA. So Dorothy was first. In Katherine Johnson's opinion, the smartest of them all. I mean, Katherine Johnson, the one who calculated the numbers that saw John Glenn orbiting the Earth, was like, no, Dorothy was smarter than me. So that's an accolade in and of itself, right? Dorothy excelled not just at math, but at people and managing people and taking care of her people. So much so that when she was moved into management, for which position she was better able to take care of her girls, when Catherine Goebel, later Johnson, was hired and the work group she was assigned to wanted to keep working with her, Dorothy approached the group manager and said either promote her per policy or send her back to West Computing Group for reassignment, because you're keeping her here at a lower pay scale than she should be earning if she's on permanent assignment to you. And that worked. That move, incidentally, did not just benefit Catherine Goebel. A white computer in the same group who had been hired on at about the same time Catherine has temporarily, had been petitioning for a raise. She was trying to bring that exact same point. It was, hey, I've been doing the work. I'm here. If you're not going to, keep me full time, let me go so I can find someplace else. But those full-time assignments meant a pay raise, better promotion. It was everything you want it to be, because it meant your job was a little more permanent, that much closer to staying on full-time even after the war, right? So this white woman was also hired on permanently with the group and given the raise she was deserved, because Dorothy, as a manager, came in and reminded the group's manager, Henry Pearson, that the rules are the rules. If you keep them, you promote them. Otherwise, cut them loose so we can reassign them and find somebody who will pay them what they're worth, basically. After Dorothy, the next major figure from the movie that joins our team is Mary Jackson. Now, Mary was born Mary Winston on April 9th, 1921 in Hampton, Virginia, where she also graduated with honors before attending Hampton University, where she earned dual degrees in math and physical science in 1942. I need to try the role models. Oh, that's tasty. That is very tasty. So Mary also worked as a teacher before hearing about a NACA job as a computer, where she applied and was hired to work in April of 1951, so just after the war. So they're still hiring women. And yes, the men are back, but not all of the men are mathematics or are mathematicians. Not all of them are engineers. She was assigned to work in one group, but after having to go for a hike to find the colored bathroom, because we are in Virginia in the 1950s, She had a justifiable screaming fit about it in the outdoors quad, and which was witnessed by engineer Kazimierz Kazarnecki, I'm probably mispronouncing that, who immediately offered her a job with his group and became a lifelong mentor and friend. And he encouraged her to take the required courses to become an engineer and get that master's degree, pushing through her grade promotions and pay raises, just behind her every step of the way, backing her up. And then, of course, there's Katherine Johnson, who was born Catherine Coleman on August 26, 1918, in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. Every bit as brilliant as she was portrayed to be in the movie. Graduated high school at 14 before enrolling in college at West Virginia State College, where she took every math class she possibly could. After that, she actually was briefly enrolled in the master's program at an early attempt at integration at West Virginia University. They got permission to enroll 3 black students, so they enrolled 2 men and Catherine Coleman. No, she was Goebbels at the time. Catherine Goebel at the time, excuse me, because she was married. But shortly after enrolling, she became pregnant with her first child, and no one was going to tell her to forget motherhood, work on integration, so she ended up not completing the graduate program. Was she a teacher? I think she was a teacher briefly before finding her way to NACA, which would eventually rebrand as the National Aeronautics Space Administration, with the, I believe, Kennedy administration is the one that pushed that through. And that's where she found her life's purpose, calculating the incredibly complex math to ensure that man could safely ascend to space and then descend back to Earth, and calculating the trajectories and orbits of the first moon landing. Didn't know that. I mean, it was a very pivotal moment in the film, right? When John Glenn is like, have the smart girl calculated. If that matches, if the numbers match, I'm good to go. It was a pivotal moment in the film that actually did happen in real life. It wasn't while he was on the platform. That was done for dramatic effect, obviously. But he did say, I want her to check the numbers, because at the time the computers were still brand new. Brand new tech is not always trustworthy. And if he's going to go up, he wants to make damn sure he's going to land again. And he trusted Catherine because she was the group's calculator. She was their mathematician. She was the one who did the numbers to make sure everything was going to work. And so she did. And her numbers matched up with the computers, and so John Glenn orbited the Earth and returned safely. And then after that, she would go on to calculate the moon landing. And I don't know why I wasn't aware of this, but it wasn't just the shuttle that landed on the moon. They also had an orbiting platform that orbited the moon, and she got those numbers right. She said, basically, when the shuttle kicked off from the moon, if it didn't kick off at the exact right moment, it would miss its connection with the orbiting platform above, and then they wouldn't be able to return to Earth. And she calculated, I can barely add. I can't even balance my damn checkbook. And here's this woman calculating how to get 3 people to the moon and back safely in one piece. Unfucking real how smart she was. So there's the brief outline, right? And that's more or less portrayed in the movie. Why is the book better? Well, some things are not the fault of Hollywood. All right. I mean, there were well over 100 West Group computers who were all brilliant, contributed in their own way to the advancement of mankind. I'm furious. I'm actually mad. That's why I'm crying. I'm so mad at how the movie portrayed some of this. As is the case with any book adaptation, you have to cut some of the story to allow for a central focus. You have to. And even though the book centrally focused on Dorothy Vaughan, Katherine Johnson, and Mary Jackson, the movie had to cut out some of the little things that women did to fight for justice, like Miriam Mann, who quietly took home with her the colored table sign from the cafeteria again and again and again, until whoever kept putting it up just gave up, and then the sign was no more. Little acts of rebellion like that, which were outstandingly brave, because if she'd have been caught, she could have been fired for that, and she didn't care. She's like, nope, I'm taking this home with me. Good on you, girl. Good for you. Rather than giving Mary Jackson her justified rant about the colored bathrooms, they made this big thing in the film with Katherine Johnson having the breakdown, and of course Kevin Costner's character Al breaks down the sign. We're all the same here. Good moment, right? I did love the speech they gave Mary Jackson in the film to the judge so that she could get permission to go to the all-white high school. I put that in air quotes because what really happened is she had to petition the school board for permission, and the school board granted it. And when she got there, she saw that the high school the classes were being taught at was just as broken down and awful as the colored high school, because it was the poor whites high school. But it was a great speech she gave in the film. Again, I do get it, all right? I get it. They had to condense it. Remember, the events of the book take place over 20 plus years. The events of the film take place over, what, a year and a half, 2 years? And the medium of film is show, don't tell. So I get that they had to make adjustments and concessions to the story so that they could show the story, not tell it. I get that. I mean, well, when Catherine Goebel, later Johnson, was given her first assignment to the group that she would eventually become permanent member of, she just quietly used the unmarked bathroom, assuming that if there was no sign, it was available for everyone to use. And by the time anyone had figured out she was using the white bathroom, her work had already become indispensable, resulting in no one caring which bathroom was being used. I think the book mentions they tried to make a thing out of it, but she just kept ignoring it and peeing where it was convenient for her, which, good on you. I don't blame you. Stupid laws are meant to be broken. I should say stupid rules are meant to be broken. I'm not encouraging anybody to break the law. I'm just getting it out there to protect myself legally. I'm not encouraging anybody to break the law, but stupid laws should be evaluated on their own merit and then make your own decisions. That's how we're going to word that. But I think the biggest thing that bugs me about the movie, having now read the book, is the absolute missed opportunity to show the mad progress in race relations that NACA/NASA contributed to. And no joke, if you watch Hidden Figures on Amazon on a computer, I don't know if it'll do it on the TV, but I know on the computer it will. You can slide over on the screen that'll show you tidbits about the movie, right? They'll include things like X was a generic stand-in figure used to show the dismissive figures of whites towards their black compatriots, right? Paraphrasing, but it's something roughly like that. And here's the thing. According to the book, much like Star Trek in the 1960s, nerds led the way, all right? They led the way into the future. Not just in spaceflight, but in not giving a flying fuck about the color of someone's skin. Could the person do the job they were assigned to do? That's what they cared about. Did the math. That's all they cared about. And so all the dismissive attitudes and segregation was absolutely ongoing outside of Langley. She doesn't question that. She points out, yes, this is what was going on as this backdrop of what's going on. Inside Langley, it was a microcosm of what the future could be. So mad. The movie shows plenty of what was going on outside because it shows Dorothy Vaughan stealing a book on Fortran programming from the library because it wasn't in the colored section. And she said, my taxes pay for this too. Stupid rule should be broken. Good for you. Mary Jackson's impassioned speech to the judge about being the first. Absolutely. Shows that dismissive attitude. Get it. But inside Langley, everything was coming together. Let me get my shit together here. I'm so irritated. I mean, outside of Langley, Prince Edward County, Virginia closed all schools for 5 years rather than integrate. Inside Langley, friendships were born, lifelong friendships. They would hold Christmas party and staffing events inside the facility because then they didn't have to worry about finding a restaurant outside the facility that would allow them to integrate. In the movie, Mary Jackson's mentor was Karl Zielinski, a Polish Jew. Kaz was Polish, Catholic. Catholics are not as downtrodden like the Jews were, especially in the years following World War II, and so Hollywood could not possibly portray a white man as doing anything so altruistic as supporting the ambitions and dreams of a black woman in 1950s America. And so they changed Kaz to a Jewish man. On Catherine's first day in her assigned group, she took a desk, and yes, her cubicle mate immediately got up and left. She remembers that. The author had a chance to interview Mary Johnson, who reported that. Catherine Johnson. Catherine never found out why, and it ended up not mattering, because when he found out that she was also from West Virginia, they became lifelong friends, bonding over the differences between the Blue Ridge Mountains of West Virginia and the Virginia Delta, in which they now found themselves living. Dorothy Vaughan speaking up for her girls directly benefited the white computers too, and she formed friendships with the other supervisors regardless of color. They all saw each other as equals, and as equal contributors to the American dream. And her co-workers applauded Mary Jackson when her son won the annual soapbox derby. They thrilled when Catherine Johnson's math proves the new computers were not a waste of government funding. Supported Dorothy Vaughan when she hits her 20 years of service with the agency. But Hollywood could not possibly show that internal support that helped these women climb to the top, and then boost people even further. Now, the more I find out about how Hollywood twists history to tell a specific narrative, the angrier I get about the glop that's being put on the screen these days. And these brilliant women, absolute role models, sent people to the stars.
landed them on the moon and started planning how to get to Mars. But Hollywood can't have us know that it was all a team effort. Still love the movie. The acting is phenomenal. The story tells a broad scope of history, but the book was so much more hopeful. It includes the stories of the other computers, the generation that comes after. The ones that were inspired by Katherine Johnson, Mary Jackson, Dorothy Vaughan. The women who are role models of what it means to work towards a dream and live that dream. I'm so mad about the movie now. I just can't stop. Fuck Hollywood. You live the dream so that your children can do better, and the generation after that can do better still. And that's it for this week. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe. I will see you guys next Sunday. Bye.